There are few days that can match the level of excitement of when you finally get to ride a new bike for the first time, especially if you haven't ridden one in a while. Well, today is one of those days. The bike we're going to be building up today is called the Niner Rip E9, and it has 29-inch wheels, 150 millimeters of rear suspension, and 160 millimeters on the fork. Also, it's an e-bike. Now, I know e-bikes can be controversial for some people, but to me, this bike means a lot. I think that with the help of this bike, I'm finally going to be able to get back out on the trails while still taking it a little bit easier on my heart. I've been dreaming of this day for months and months now. So without further ado, let's jump into the build and get this thing started. The first thing I like to do with any bike build is to pull all of the cables through the frame to prepare for mounting the other parts. So as we start putting the cables through the bike, I have one of these really nifty little internal routing tools. So basically one end threads into the cable and allows you to pull the cable through. And then the other end has a little magnet on it. Another good little trick is sometimes if you have to get something that's like really tucked behind, you can use a long Allen wrench and it'll stick to the end of that too. So that makes it a lot easier. Once we got the shifter cable, rear brake cable, and dropper cable installed, I went ahead and put a little bit of mastic tape on the chainstay to prevent any chain slap from happening on rough trails. After that, it's time to start installing the suspension, starting with the rear shock. When installing a shock, a little grease goes a long way in helping with future maintenance. On this style of trunnion shock, I like to install the top 2 bolts first, followed by the bottom shock bolt. After the shock was installed, then we can start moving towards the front of the bike. Before we do that, I just want to say I'm really stoked because this is a new fork from Suntour, and I actually got to go to the factory in 2019 in Taiwan. We did a bunch of meetings about prototypes of this thing, and I saw like the first casting of it. So to finally see the real fork in person is really cool, and I'm super stoked to try it out. So now that we got the rear shock installed, the next thing to do is install the fork. And to do that, we need to first put the crown race on, which is the bottom part of the headset. So you have your bottom bearing, crown race goes there and kind of mates with the bearing. Also, this part is really fun because I get to use my favorite tool ever, which is just this PVC pipe from Home Depot. It saved me about 75 bucks and it makes it real easy to get the headset race on. And I think the actual tool for this is like 75 or 80 bucks. So it's nice to have a little cheap one. But let's go ahead and put the fork in, we'll measure it and then start cutting. Here, I'm just trying to get an idea of how long to cut the steer tube for the fork. I like to do this by mocking up my setup. Generally, I run 2 or 3 spacers under the stem, then 1 or 2 on top, just so I have some adjustability down the road. After that, it's time to cut the fork. I personally like using a pipe cutter, just because it's a little bit less messy than a hacksaw. This is called a star nut. So the star nut is what goes in here and allows you to compress your headset. This is a little star nut setting tool. So basically you just thread the star nut onto the end. And then this sleeve goes over the steer tube and it makes sure that you get it at the right height, which is really nice. Cool. And it always sets it at the right height, which is really nice too. So let's go ahead and throw the fork on. After a quick blast of air to clean off any metal shavings, it's time to reassemble the headset and tighten everything down. You always want to make sure that the last spacer you put on has a little bit of a gap, usually like a 2.5 to 3 millimeter gap above the steer tube. So as you can see, there's a little gap here. And what that does is as you tighten this top cap, it actually allows the headset to compress slightly. If you have them flush, then a lot of times you'll get it all tight, but then your headset will always kind of wobble. So you always just want to make sure that you have enough of a gap there to make your headset tighten. So I'm going to go ahead and install this and we should be good. After getting the fork and headset installed, the next step is installing the handlebars and all of the controls that go along with it. After getting everything on the handlebars tightened up, the next step was installing the front and rear brake. And I'm gonna do the front brake first because this is a complete system. The rear brake, I have to actually bleed because I had to put a new hose on for this. Let's go ahead and get the front brake hooked up, and then we'll go bleed the rear, tackle that whole problem, and then move on through the rest of the bike. I got our full little bleed kit, mineral oil, all that good stuff. That's not the most fun process, but I'll show you guys a couple little tricks on how to do it a little easier. I'm gonna basically install the rear brake back here. Then we need to hook up the lever so we can actually do a bleed on it. The back brake is attached to the rear of the bike back there. And then all I need to do now is cut this down. So I'm gonna basically measure it, cut it, and then we'll put all the fittings on. And then once we get the hose attached, we'll do a full bleed. We gotta flush all the air out, get it all set up, and then make the back brake work. So let's go ahead and start with that. All right, so we cut the cable to length, and now we need to make sure that we put our little cover on there, this nut, which will basically compress everything. You have what they call an olive, which is this little gold thing. And then this is called the barb, and this little guy goes in the end of the brake cable. So this is actually a barb press. So what you do is you put the cable in there, it clamps the cable down, and then this pushes down on the barb. And then once you get all those pieces in place, slide it into the lever and then use this 8mm to compress everything. Cool. Usually once you get a couple turns, then it should kind of hold itself in. But you want to make sure that you get this tight and actually compress it. I've had some friends that have set these up and then their brake cable just falls out and that's never good. So give a little tug on the brake cable. Now we're good to go. And then this is a cover. This makes it look nicer. Now that the rear brake is completely assembled, we need to do the bleed. The way I like to do this is to put a cup on the lever and throw a splash of oil in there. Then we're going to go to the brake caliper and install a bleed block. Next, I'm going to use a syringe to suck up some mineral oil. And then I'm going to pull a slight vacuum by plugging my thumb on the end of the syringe and pulling down to make sure any bubbles in the oil will rise to the surface. After that, I'm going to hook up the syringe to the brake caliper along with a small 7mm wrench. Once everything's hooked up, we're going to be able to push the fluid from the brake caliper up to the brake lever and get all the air bubbles out of the line. Once the line is completely clear of air bubbles, then we'll close off the brake caliper and do a quick lever bleed to make sure we get rid of any sneaky bubbles in the lever. Then all you have to do is replace the cap on the lever, take out your bleed block, clean everything up, and put in some pads, and you're ready to go. Next up is installing both tires to get the wheels all set up. On this bike, I'm going to be running 2.6 inch wide Schwalbe tires in the Super Trail casing. Schwalbe does make heavier casing tires as well, which I may throw on in the future, but I actually had really good luck with this rear tire on my non-e-bike all last year. For anyone wondering, I pretty much always run a light Cushcore in the rear because I really like the feel of it. They can be a huge pain to install though, but today I got really lucky and did it first try. After mounting up both of the tires, I just need to inject some sealant and air them up. After getting the tires mounted, I decided to install the rear wheel so I could start working on the drivetrain. The first step that I like to do when installing a drivetrain is to make sure that the derailleur hanger is straight using a derailleur hanger alignment tool. This is pretty simple actually. All you do is you bolt it onto the derailleur hanger and then you check to make sure that it is equal distance away from the wheel in 4 different positions. If anything is a little bit off, you can do a little bit of bending to get things right, but it's pretty simple, and once you have it all checked, then you should be good to go. Now it's time to install the derailleur and hook it up to the shifter. Luckily, this derailleur was actually off of another bike using the same hanger and wheel spacing, so all the settings worked out right away. I didn't have to do a lot of tuning, which was really cool. So that meant all I had to do was hook up the cable and adjust the cable tension just very slightly, and then we were off and running. When installing a new chain, there's a bunch of different ways you can measure for the correct chain length. Since I built up so many bikes over the last few years racing, I just kind of eyeball it, which maybe isn't the best thing to do, but it always seems to work out. If you guys have any questions on how to accurately do chain length, let me know and we can do a video on that in the future. After installing the derailleur and chain, it was time to install the pedals so I could pedal through the gears and make those fine-tune adjustments. I'm actually not sure if I'm going to run flat or clipless pedals when I make my return to riding, but for now I have these Crank Brothers ones that I'm going to throw on. After getting the drivetrain all set up, it was time to install the front wheel and get the front brake all dialed in, but I ran into a problem where I had actually installed too big of an adapter, so I needed to change that out before I could go any further. Cool. All right, we're almost done. I think the only thing we need to do is throw the dropper post on, which is this guy. And so I just got to basically put a cap on this. We'll measure the insertion length, and then we'll cut the cable minus the insertion length and then hook it all up, and we should be good to go. Let's go ahead and get this dropper installed, throw a battery in here, and then go hit some jumps or something. I've seen this trip up a lot of people in the past when it comes to measuring your cable length properly, but there's actually a pretty simple way to do it. All you need to do is measure how far down your seat post is going to go into the frame, and then set your housing to the top of the seat tube. After that, you'll go up to the lever on your handlebars and set up the cable just how you want it to look when you're all done. Then you'll subtract the insertion length you had measured before from the end of the cable housing, and after you make the cut, you should be all good once the seat post goes into the frame. I honestly don't know if there's been a bigger innovation in the last decade than dropper seat posts, but if you have any ideas of another big one, let me know because I'd love to hear it. Installing the battery is pretty quick and easy. All you do is pop that bad boy in and put the cover on so nothing crazy happens out on the trail. From there, all I had to do was make a couple quick adjustments on the levers, make sure I didn't forget anything, throw on a water bottle, and then I think we're pretty much ready to test it out. Sweet. We pretty much got it done, but the only way to truly test a bike build is to go outside, pedal it around, and maybe even set up the little mountain bike hopper ramp for a few jumps. So let's go check it out. So I figured the best way to test this thing out is just put together a little jump and check it out. We got a pretty short run in, but I'm hoping that with the e-bike we'll get enough speed to like get at least a little bit of air. So it should be kind of fun. Okay, and then I think that's how it goes. Oh, fasten the rope under the... I'm gonna just bounce around a little bit first to see if anything's like loose, and then I'll give it a shot. Oh my God. Oh my God, I'm out of shape. I feel so out of shape, but it's good. It feels good to be on a bike. This thing feels sweet. I'm stoked to go riding. So we'll see if we can get like 20 feet.
Oh, you're serious?
It felt small when I was coming at it.
Okay. At least you got the sick curb to keep you honest.
I got turbo mode.
I'm gonna have to back up for this.
Ready?
Yeah.
Ah!
What was the panic? Ah.
I'm scared to stand. I don't feel like I can like stand and sprint, so I was trying to get enough power seated, and I don't know if I had it.
Oh. You had it, but I think you're a little close.
I'm gonna get a little bit more run. drop in.
That was perfect.
Thank you. Feels super good. I'm excited. We'll go riding. Super stoked on the sun. Little ramp is perfect. The bike feels really good. I think between the time we left the shop and then got out here, basically all I did was just adjust a few little things, and then I lowered the seat post a little bit more too. But yeah, stoked. It's gonna be fun. Thank you guys so much for watching our little build video. I had a lot of fun building it up today, and then thanks to April for filming. I think she did a really killer job, and yeah, I'm just so excited with how it turned out. The bike feels really good. We got April set up earlier this week in a size medium with some purple parts for her so we don't get confused. And then yeah, just excited to get back in shape and start mountain biking again. And I think the next adventure we'll share with you guys hopefully is the first ride back out in the mountains in the Owyhees. And yeah, I'm just really excited, so can't wait to go riding with you.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So it'll be good to get back. But thank you guys again for watching, and we will talk to you soon, and hope you have fun riding in the meantime.